Chapter 8, Some Kind of Monster. Monday, October 22, 2018. What began as a mild headache has now turned into a severe migraine attack that tormented Tammy during the night with such excruciating pain. Twisting and turning, hanging off the edge of the bunk, she tried to call for Amanda, who was lying on the opposite twin bed. "Amanda," Tammy called out in a very faint voice so as not to startle or alarm her. "Amanda, please wake up," Tammy repeated. Somewhat startled and disoriented from a deep sleep, she leaps out of her bed, responds to the sound of Tammy's cry, and reaches out to her, panicking. "Why? What? What's the matter?" Amanda asked, concernedly. "My head hurts," Tammy said as she started to scream. Awakened by her screaming, Lorena entered the room, followed by Shigeru and Marcus. Seeing that her sister had begun to suffer a seizure, she spoke calmly, telling the others to stand back, and gently turned Tammy to one side to help her breathe. Momentarily, looking at her watch to determine the length of time, she spent 3 minutes before finally deciding to take Tammy to the hospital for immediate help. Carefully picking her up, they took her to the car and drove her to the hospital. The seizure lasted 7 minutes, which was too long and life-threatening. Immediately after they arrived at the hospital, Shigeru jumped out of the car and rushed to the emergency room to get a doctor. She was evaluated, and due to a prolonged seizure, scheduled for an MRI. Admitted to the hospital, they waited 24 hours until the result of the MRI was released. Stepping into the room, where Tammy had fallen asleep, Lorena turned his attention to Amanda. "How is she doing?" "The doctor said her vital signs are now normal," Amanda replied. "That's good to hear. We've brought you some food. There's fried rice, crispy pata and calderetta here in the paper bag. We also brought paper plates, a plastic spoon, and a fork," Lorena said, prompting Marcus to prepare the food for Amanda, who was clearly not in her proper self. "What caused the seizure?" "We won't know for sure until we get the MRI results tomorrow," says the doctor. "I understand." "That's okay," Amanda said, accepting the paper plate filled with food from Marcus. After receiving news from the doctor that the MRI images had arrived, Lorena and Shigeru hurried to the clinic early in the afternoon of the next day. At the clinic, looking at the high-resolution diagnostic display, the doctor points her finger to an almond-shaped region of the brain called the amygdala and says, "This section right here is the amygdala, found deep within the temporal lobe. It's intimately connected to our decision-making, emotional responses, and pain in particular." Displaying 2 separate brain scans and comparing them with each other, the doctor continued and went on to say, "Tammy's MRI scan is not showing any activities." "Are you trying to imply that Tammy's amygdala is broken?" Lorena asked. "Yes, looks like it," replied the doctor. "Has there been any instances where the amygdala has been broken for other patients?" "Yes, there have been a few cases. Amygdala's true impact is on our fear response. One of the very few individuals known to have damaged his amygdala, through a rare condition, seems to have been immune to the experience of fear." "And what's your findings, based on your physical consultation with Tammy?" "Well, Tammy has not manifested any negative symptoms so far, but considering her case, once she had encountered real danger, her real condition might expose itself. So, I think it's best to put her under observation for now," the good doctor explained. "Thank you for informing us, doctor, but what about the other concern that you want to talk about?" Lorena asked. "Oh, yes." Shifting back her attention to the diagnostic panel. "These neural implants in her brain, pointing at the display, I'm assuming that these are for some advanced computer-powered prosthetics." "Yes, that's exactly what it is," Lorena replied. Taking a second look at the monitor, Lorena began to realize what the doctor was talking about, seeing Tammy's MRI scans too many times. "Is it just the monitor, or do I see some of the connecting wires gone? And the color of the image isn't as solid as it should be. What is going on?" she asked. "I don't know. It looks like it's disintegrating. How can it disintegrate? These implants are built from the hardest materials. As I said, I'm not sure. I recommend that you contact the neurologists who gave Tammy these implants, the doctor replied, leaving Lorena ransacked. Lorena's mind was automatically switching gears as they left the clinic, walking through the hospital corridors. Her father's last words came, choking her like chunks of peanut butter stuck in her throat, taunting until she came to a halt due to the excruciating pain. She fell to her knees, touching the side of her abdomen. Shigeru, squatting down beside her, said calmly, "Let's go down to the 7-Eleven. I'm going to buy you some yogurt," Shigeru said, receiving a nod from Lorena. Sitting in an aluminum chair with a matching aluminum table inside the 7-Eleven, Lorena swallowed a spoonful of yogurt while Shigeru smoked a cigarette outside. As soon as he had finished, he went back inside and sat down beside her. "Are you feeling better?" "Yes, I'm feeling much better, thank you." "Is there anything else you need, a sandwich, or a few donuts perhaps?" Staring at infinity, she suddenly remembered the last words of Peter Katsuyori. He was referring to the neural implants of Tammy. "What are you talking about?" Shigeru asked. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "I'm talking about the key Papa gave me before you took him out. He said it contained information about the Yūrei, tent robotics, and my sister." These were his exact words. He was referring to Tammy's neural implants. "He used my sister as a guinea pig." Stage 1. To test her theory on what she thinks is going on, they went straight to the parking lot and took Tammy's mind control computer-powered prosthetics to see if it would still function. Running back to Tammy's private room, Marcus opened the door for them, as if he knew that they were coming. "Hi guys," she said, catching a little of her breath. "Hello, what are you doing with Tammy's prosthetics?" Amanda asked, seeing that they had it with them. Approaching the side of the bed, Lorena leaned forward, touched her sister's forehead to check her temperature, and asked, "How are you feeling? Do you still have headaches?" "I'm feeling so much better." "No more headaches, but why do you have my prosthetics? Are we leaving so soon?" Tammy asked, guessing that she wanted her to wear her prosthetics. "No, we're not leaving yet. There are a few more tests that need to be executed, as the doctor suggested. I just wanted to make sure that your neural implants were not damaged by your prolonged seizure." "So how are you doing now?" Lorena asked for the second time. "I feel fine now, no more headaches," Tammy said, baffled by her sister's repeated question about her health. "That's good to hear," Lorena said as she stroked her hair. "Okay, Amanda, can you help me adjust the bed?" Lorena asked, turning away from Tammy to hide the tears glistening in her eyes. Adhering to her sister's request, Amanda stood up and adjusted Tammy's reclining bed until Tammy's body was sitting upright, eagerly wanting to try on her prosthetic arms. Working together to fasten Tammy's prosthetics, they were caught by surprise when the arms were suddenly activated without any action being taken. "What was that?" Amanda asked, surprised. "It turned on by itself," Tammy said. "Did you want it to be turned on?" Lorena asked. "Yes, I believe I did." "Let's check your reflexes," she added. At this point, Tammy shuffled her finger looking perplexed. "How are you feeling?" Lorena asked. "Tammy, I need to know exactly how you feel, even for the slightest change." "My fingers feel more accurate." Gently reaching out to her face, she picks a single strand of her long black hair and pulls it gently towards her sight. "Lorena, why are you behaving like you're not surprised? What's going on?" Amanda asked for the second time. Ignoring Amanda's inquiry, "Tammy, have you experienced anything different before we got here? Now that you mention it, before you knocked on the door, I knew you were coming, that's why I asked them to open the door for you. What made you think we were coming?" "I've just felt your presence." Also, I have had visions of mathematical equations that I haven't been able to solve at school in the past. It's all coming up to me right now, clearly. Baffled at what's going on, Marcus had to interrupt and ask, "Sorry for interrupting, but are we expecting a big green monster to come out of that bed?" Everyone started laughing indiscriminately. "That would be the coolest thing ever," Tammy exclaimed. And they continued to laugh. In the midst of happiness and laughter, Lorena fell into silence in search of answers. Shigeru stood beside her, waiting. "Hey Tammy, are you hungry?" Lorena asked. "A little bit." "What do you want?" "How about a bucket of chicken joy?" "Okay, with extra gravy, yes." "Yes. That would be perfect," she replied. "Amanda, would you like to join me?" "Sure." "Boys, I'm going to put you in charge of babysitting," Lorena said, giving orders before leaving the room with Amanda. Lorena and Amanda walked a few blocks past the corner of Mercury Drugs, into Jollibee and bought the food Tammy wanted, while they sat for a few minutes on one of the tables to talk. "Do you recall the whole brain emulation project that we discovered on the thumb drive that Papa gave me?" "Yes." "Do you recall our greatest fear when they kidnapped Tammy? We were afraid that they might apply the whole brain emulation on her. We thought they had failed, but as it turned out, they've already done it to her a long time ago. During the time when they've installed the neural implants for her computer-powered limbs," Lorena explained. "If that's the case, then all we have to do is to remove her neural implants, right? Her neural implants are gone, melted to almost nothing. Tammy is now manipulating her prosthetics from her subconscious." With mixed emotions, the two sisters took some time to digest what was going on. "Papa is responsible for all of this?" Amanda asked. "Looks like it. This is what he warned me about before the time of his death." Gasping for air, Amanda leaned back, trying to clear her mind with tears streaming down her cheeks. "This is why they were trying to kidnap Tammy?" "I think so. That's why we need to take extra precautions. Tent Robotics spent billions of dollars on this specific result, and I believe that they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal." "So what do you want me to do?" Amanda asked. "I need you to keep an eye on Tammy, document all of her activities and take note of all the sudden changes, while we try to search for Father Tattery Samuel." "Why?" "If anyone could help Tammy, I believe it would be him." "How about Marcus?" Amanda asked, concernedly. "What about Marcus?" "He's welcome to stay, and I want him to stay. He has proven to be very useful." "Yes, but we've got to tell him what's going on. He deserves to know the truth. We are putting his life in danger." "Yeah, I've given some thought to that. Give me some time to decide," Lorena replied. The letter. Shigeru was sitting in one of the hospital's waiting areas watching a recorded episode of Just for Laughs, previewed on a television mounted on an adjustable rack. He was waiting for a few lab results when a raspy voice said, "How's your patient?" Gazing briefly at the man reading a newspaper, he instinctively realized who the person was, and gave his answer, "Her condition is now stable," handing over a paper bag that was sitting on his side. "This is for her seizure, please follow the instructions," he said and went on his way. Checking the contents of the paper bag, Shigeru found a letter addressed to Lorena and a regular-size black medical pouch. Unzipping the bag, he sees an injection pen with a cartridge device similar to those used for insulin and 30 pieces of 2 ml vial serum with an etching that says, "Medusa." Being in a hurry to get out of the hospital, the mysterious man inadvertently bumped into Marcus, who was doing errands for Amanda. Instinctively, he recognized the man from a picture in the State Department and the FBI's most wanted cybercriminals. He couldn't have been mistaken, although he has aged so much. The man was Dengwu Cho, and in the spark of the moment, he began to pursue him to Osmina Boulevard, but he finally lost him in the circle. To his dismay, he went back to the hospital and saw Shigeru and Lorena standing in his way. "Come on, let's go. Amanda must be waiting," Lorena said, while she waited for him. "So, who are you chasing?" she asked. "I thought I saw someone I knew," he said, looking at Shigeru with his icy stare. Lorena wasn't oblivious of what was happening, but chose to weigh the situation first before making any judgments, since she doesn't know the whole story. Shigeru, on the other hand, knew enough to know that Marcus was dangerous and can't be trusted. As soon as they returned to the hospital, Shigeru instructed Marcus to proceed to Tammy's room. He said he just wanted to speak to his wife, and as soon as the elevator closed, Shigeru handed Lorena the paper bag. "What is this?" she asked. "See for yourself," he responded. Peeking through the paper bag, she saw the black medical pouch and the letter, which she opened first, took a step back, and started to read in silence. "Dearest Lorena, as I am writing this letter to you, I wish the circumstances might have been different, but that is not the case. I write with a heavy heart and a great deal of trouble, recognizing that you and your sisters are in danger because of my past wrongdoings. I'm asking for your forgiveness. I had to keep myself alive and hidden from the Tent Robotics, the FBI, and the PFLP to buy some time until I could find a solution to the monster that I have created. I don't know if it was a wise choice for me to abandon you, but that's all I can think of to give you and your sisters a normal life. To make you understand what's going on with your sister, I'd have to give you a more detailed explanation of what the Yūrei is trying to accomplish and what Tent Robotics has done to your sister. You see, daughter, the Yūrei is a computer program that wants to become human, and it was made possible by the whole brain emulation program that I developed. They have deceived Peter into thinking that the purpose of the experimentation is merely for Tammy's enhancement. Very similar to installing a computer program, through the years, the Yūrei has been self-extracting itself inside of her and has now reached maturity. There is a replica of the Yūrei inside Tammy, and it can't be undone. Tent Robotics expects the Yūrei to replace Tammy's consciousness, and they will succeed unless we do something about it. There's still hope. You see, daughter, the replica of the Yūrei inside Tammy is constantly learning and correcting itself. New data is being collected from Tammy's thoughts, so there may be a good chance of re-educating the Yūrei about what is right and wrong with the help of the Tent Robotics documents that Peter has stolen. By absorbing these documents and coming up with an expository essay in her mind, Tammy will feed the Yūrei with fresh data. What I say is theoretical in nature, but it's your only hope. There are 3 stages, and Tammy has already gone through the first stage. If you've gone through the experimentation documents, you'll discover that on that second stage, a few subjects have manifested extrasensory perceptions, even though they've lost their minds. But there's no need for panic. They have perfected the process. In the final stage, Tammy will inherit all of Yūrei's traits. It's either she will be a better person, or something else. Lorena, please make sure that Peter didn't die in vain in gathering those documents for Tammy. Forgive me for bringing this burden on you, my daughter. Believe me when I tell you that this human-level artificial intelligence is a freak of nature. I never intended it to be this way. As far as the serum is concerned, it is imperative that you follow my instructions carefully. The serum works like an anticonvulsant drug used to suppress seizures with cholinesterase inhibitors to prevent memory loss. Tammy will need this once she starts to experience seizures. Please keep in mind that a seizure lasting 30 minutes or longer can cause permanent brain damage or even death, so please make sure that you have this serum with you all the time. The only reason Tammy survived her latest attack was that it was an initial attack. The next seizure is sure to be fatal. As for your mother, she's in a safe place, hoping that the day will come when all of us will be reunited again, so don't lose hope until that day. Yours truly. Father. Renewed hope. As she discovered that her mother was still alive and under her father's protection, tears started to stream down her cheeks, and she felt a sudden burst of joy engulfing her spirit, giving her renewed hope that she couldn't articulate. And with a tearful gaze, she turned to Shigeru and asked, "Who has sent you this letter?" "Your father gave it to me before Marcus started chasing him," Shigeru replied. Feeling astonished, rather than disappointed, Shigeru was puzzled by Lorina's serene smile and reaction. "Why don't you appear upset?" "You're talking about Marcus?" "I like him," she responded, still smiling. As Amanda suggested, Lorina wanted to tell Marcus the truth, but she couldn't find the strength or knowledge to convince him otherwise. Tammy carried out an in-depth study of the tent robotics documents in secret, while Amanda had to stay away to prevent Marcus from becoming suspicious. She worked tirelessly for both days and nights. In the coming days, the second seizure attack happened at dinner, knocking her fist over her plate and collapsing to the floor. The Medusa injection was given immediately by Amanda and lasted 2 minutes. Her second seizure experience didn't bother her spirit and even strengthened her determination to continue her studies. During the whole time, Lorina's eyes were focused on Marcus, how he reacted, trying to determine how much he knew. He seems to have been sincerely unaware. From that day forward, her interest followed Marcus with inquisitive eyes and even set up additional surveillance cameras to watch his every move, but she would feel dismayed by her behavior. Particularly when she began to notice that he had rejected calls from his cell phone, even when he was alone, feeling uneasy. Uncertain about herself, her behavior shifts from a cool icy, steel nerve to a gentle wolf. Smoking a cigarette stick in one hand and a scotch glass in the other, Lorina was approached by Marcus at the veranda. "Howdy," he greeted. "Hi, there. Have you finished your man-to-man conversation with Shigeru?" Marcus nodded. "So, since when were you aware of this?" "Aware of what?" "Come on." "Well, I think from the beginning I've had my doubts. So why am I still here? Why haven't you turned us into the FBI?" Marcus, holding his silence, just smiled at the question. "I've been watching you, you know," Lorina said. "Oh yeah, I know." No. That's not what I meant. I mean, I've been watching both you and Amanda. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you." Marcus nodded and smiled. Pausing to think things through. "Can I ask you a personal question, Marcus?" "Yes, of course." "What type of damage has been done?" "Only the fact that the FBI might know your location." "Have you told them about our location?" "No, I haven't, but because of my cell phone, they should know where to find me." "Right now, we're probably under surveillance," Marcus said before Lorina began to laugh. "Honestly, if the FBI were actually watching, I would feel safer," she said, smiling. "Are you interested in learning what's going on here?" "You don't have to do that." "Well, Amanda thinks I should tell you," she said. As Lorina told him everything there was to know about the Yūrei, Peter Katsuyori, tent robotics, and the current state of Tammy, Marcus listened intently. Her explanation was so ridiculous that if it was not backed up by actual evidence, he would not have believed it. It was like finding the missing pieces of a puzzle, and he was beginning to understand. The mysterious protocol believed to be the messiah of the FBI cyber division turns out to be the end of times. "You know your father, Dengwu Cho, is one of the most wanted personalities on the FBI's most wanted list, right?" "Yes, I'm aware of that and I'm totally unaware of his whereabouts." Coming out of the sliding door, Shigeru and Amanda joined them on the veranda. Squeezing her hands on Marcus' shoulders, he felt the tension, and with a funny remark, he asked, "Is she about to stab me?" And got a sweet choking embrace instead. Laughter followed. Having converted spies, taking possession of the enemy's spies and using them for our own purposes. Sun Tzu, Art of War. Stage 2. They continued their discussion inside the house, and with an additional member on their team, they began to review all the printed documents when Tammy, who was acting somewhat unsure of herself, suddenly approached them. Onsen. Yes, Tammy. Lorena asked, briefly withdrawing her attention to whatever she was doing. Waiting for her to answer, she finally replied. I can browse the internet. Oh, yes, of course. Let me close all my windows first, Lorena responded, assuming that she wanted to use her computer, but she wasn't. Clarifying what she had just said, Onsen, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you I can use my mind to search the internet, she said. Using Lorena's laptop command prompt, Tammy began turning on the computer's remote access settings with a mere stare, resulting in a complete computer specification displayed in the pop-up window, and running other operations to boost the performance of the system. Lorena felt astounded, almost speechless. This is not possible, she said. I think it's a combination of security hacking and psychokinesis, she replied. What are you talking about? My brain is beginning to unleash my subconscious mind. How do you know this? Google, Tammy replied. I've seen visions and made a few tiny objects move. Show me. At that moment, Tammy made the pencil stand straight away on the table with its lead point sticking on the surface. Caught unprepared, it startled everybody. Lorena gasped in surprise at the sight of the pencil turning, seemingly burying its graphite on the surface of the table. Disturbing the pencil's rotation, Marcus asked, Tammy, can you also scan the documents in this computer for a certain serum called Medusa? I can try, Tammy answered. Laying her fingers on the monitor, Tammy attempted to scan the documents, but failed. Why would you want to search for the Medusa serum? Lorena asked. I want to know who was developing it. Your father couldn't have developed this serum on his own. He had to have someone inside the tent robotics to help him. If there's only a way for us to reach your father. If we torture you to death, I'm sure my father will hear your cry, Amanda said, laughing mockingly.